Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. This is CBC Windsor News. Thanks for joining us. More tonight on the overthrow of Syria's Assad regime. The victory of the rebels has led to much celebration, but it's also exposed terrible horrors related to the treatment of prisoners. And as CBC's Dalton Chen reports, some families here in Windsor who have been separated from loved ones are desperate for answers.
As search efforts continue at the Assad regime's gruesome prison in Sednaya, Syria, this Syrian-born Windsor family has been glued to their TV for updates. That's because they believe a family member is somewhere in the underground complex. Mohanud Al-Brady is the brother-in-law of Windsor student Malak Al-Mafani. Her family hasn't had contact with him since his arrest in Syria in 2018.
We heard from survivors, and they saw him there. Yeah, and they told us that he used to be there. Some people witnessed and saw him there.
Across Syria and among those watching around the world, the celebrations after the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad have given way to grim moods. Tens of thousands of people have been released from Assad's prisons, described as slaughterhouses. Evidence of mass executions and torture has been uncovered. Syrian relief workers say they've found no further inmates despite use of sonar. But one of Malak's brothers, Bashar al-Mafani, doesn't trust those reports and wants the international community to intervene.
It's miserable. It's not just about my brother-in-law. There is something weird about the prison. And from many eyewitnesses, there could be a prison underground. Even if there is a chance of 5% that someone is underground, we have to look for them. It's not right that we just watch.
Syrian-born Windsor physician Dr. Ahmed Shakar, co-founder of the Syrian-Canadian Council, says he's heard many similar stories from local Syrian Canadians. While he feels great sympathy for families like the Malfanis, he fears that reunions with loved ones who were lost years ago are unlikely.
It is very sad to say the chance is very, very slim. And I don't like even to say that, but we know that many of those prisons already opened. Considering, we know from our experience with this barbarian regime that every week, every jail, they used to bring 50, 60 people, 100 people, kill them.
Meanwhile, the Malfanis are still watching and holding out hope of seeing Mohanud again. His two children were toddlers when he was arrested. For the past 6 years, they've been growing up without their father. Dalton Chen, CBC News, Windsor.
In other local news, many flock to our region to enjoy events like the migration of the monarch butterflies every year. However, the species is under threat. But as CBC's Jennifer Lagrassa reports, there is a push to fix that.
There's growing concern that because of climate change and pesticide use, as well as other factors, the monarch butterfly is at risk. In Canada, it's been listed as an endangered species, and now in the US, they're looking at putting it on a threatened species list. This would allow for better conservation efforts, including habitat protection. Monarch enthusiasts in Windsor, Essex, say this is good news.
It's actually reaffirming what we've been telling people all along, for the last 5-6 years. Habitat is the #1 priority.
Silvestri loves monarch butterflies, so much so he's known as the milkweed guy. It's a plant monarchs eat and lay eggs on. One expert in Ottawa studies the impact of climate change on the monarch species. She says they don't have a complete picture, but know that it can be harmful. So the more precautions taken, the better.
So when it's really, really hot and really, really dry, that's what's causes a lot of mortality in the monarchs. There's also been a lot more winter storms in the overwintering grounds in Mexico when they're there.
If the monarchs end up being listed as threatened in the US, it will mean that certain areas will be designated as critical, meaning that they can't be modified or destroyed. Here in Canada, Point Pelee National Park is a really important space for the monarchs. It's where they gather every fall before migrating to Mexico.
They're quite a unique species in the insect world because of the distance of the migration that they make. There are a lot of insect species that do migrations, but they're short migrations, 200 or 300 kilometers. But these are butterflies, some of them are flying like 5,000 kilometers in a fall to get to Mexico.
The proposal in the U.S. opens for public comment today. Canadians are welcome to comment on that as well. Those who love monarchs here in Windsor, Essex say that at the very least, they hope that this will continue to raise awareness and educate people on this unique species. Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Windsor.
Colette Kennedy joins us now for a quick look at weather. Colette, definitely a day to be bundled up.
Yes, exactly. Not just the temperatures, but then the winds, factoring those in, and the wind chills have been significant. We had some light snow and flurries early in the day, then some sunshine, but we started at -11 this morning. A few more clouds kind of building in, and we have some flurries sort of around us. That is lake effect, so we could see a few into these evening hours, and then I would expect that we get into the clearing through the overnight hours, and that's setting us up for sunshine for tomorrow. So that will be nice to have. But tonight I've got us down to -12, feeling like -18. Tomorrow we climb just to -4, feeling like -6 because those winds will ease off. There is a warm up coming though, Katarina, and I'll have more on that coming up.
Thanks so much, Colette. Premier Doug Ford said he'd like Windsor to get a helicopter to help patrol the border. He made the statement today at a press conference where he was flanked by several mayors, including Windsor's. Drew Dilkins also took to the podium to talk about both the border and the threat of U.S.-imposed tariffs.
Let me just say, on the border side, I think we need some more support. We'd appreciate more support. Premier, I appreciate what you're talking about with air support because it's a large space. It's a large space, and you need that type of investment, that type of technology in the air to help support the border side. On the investment side, with China, I don't have a precise number on the spot for you, but let me tell you, Windsor and Detroit, we're the automotive capital of Canada. Detroit is the automotive capital of the United States. We have just very, very tightly integrated economies on the in the auto industry and certainly the parts sector. And the best example of that is the parts that go into the vehicle that rolls off the finish line. The assembly line, whether it's in Detroit or in Windsor, has crossed the border on average 7 times for process improvements. And so we welcome all sorts of foreign direct investment. We want to create jobs in Ontario and certainly in the city of Windsor. And there's a big benefit whether an investment's made in the auto industry in Detroit. It's great for Windsor, great for Ontario. And certainly when we're opening, with the help of the Premier and the federal government, opening the first electric vehicle battery factory in the city of Windsor, that's great for our country, our province, our city, but also great for Detroit as well. And so when it comes to tariffs, there will definitely be an impact, obviously, on our city and our economy, but that also extends to huge pain on the U.S. side for American workers that rely on those auto jobs as well.
We told you last week about how the mobile soup shack has recently moved into a permanent building. Well, now it's getting a generous donation to support their efforts to feed people in our city. And we here at CBC had a small hand in making that happen. Check it out.
We decided as a club that we would help out. This is such a great, we call it the Roseland Christmas Miracle. So we decided to help out, and we are funding the stove and the pots and pans.
The stove's going to go over here, and we're going to have a 30-inch induction stove.
Roger is a Windsor icon, actually, in doing good in the world. So we were so excited to help him.
On behalf of the Rotary Club of Windsor Roseland, this is for you, so that you can feed Windsor Essex. I'm going to add that in.
Thank you. This is just great, and we use about 60,000 volunteer hours a year. If it wasn't for the volunteers and the donors that step up, obviously we wouldn't be able to do it.
None of this would happen if you weren't here and CBC wasn't here running that story about the soup shack, and Aruna didn't see it, and the great people at Windsor Roseland Rotary didn't see it. Thank you, CBC News Windsor, for allowing us to get that message out there, to allowing this little Christmas miracle to happen, like Aruna said. And I hope there's a lot more people watching that are encouraged and inspired to create their own Christmas miracles this season.
If you've never been inside Windsor's Willistead Manor, well, this might be the perfect time. The historic building in Walkerville gets decorated every year to the nines, especially for Christmas, and they offer special tours. CBC's Mike Evans stopped by and got a sneak peek.
Christmas has always been special around here, even at the time of the walkers. They enjoyed having people and entertaining the community. So we're just keeping on with the tradition. I myself got involved with the Christmas holidays, like a lot of people coming to look at the tours, look at all the decorations, get great ideas. And so every year we try to recreate and make changes, make differences, make it exciting for people to come back and see what we can do.
What room are we going into now?
This is the beautiful morning room, aptly named because of the beautiful window there that brings in the sunshine every morning. It's beautifully decorated with champagnes, golds, and whites, all lit up for the parties that take place here during this month.
Now, this really is a one-of-a-kind gem for the city of Windsor. There's really nothing else like it. It really is a special place. Is that why you like to be involved?
Well, it is a magical place. We're very, very fortunate in Windsor to have it. And it always shocks me, but in a happy way, to see people come here for the very first time. And they're amazed, just like we are. And there are people that come here every single year. They come in the summer for the summer tours. They come at Art in the Park, and they come at Christmas. And they just never get tired of looking at Willistead.
Take me into this room over here.
I decorated this room. This is the billiard room, and it is just fanciful, just filled with all the nutcrackers. This room with its blue and red carpet and draperies just lends itself to the red, blue, and gold of Christmas. But everyone is thrilled at looking at all the different types of nutcrackers we have sprinkled throughout the room. Of course, the nutcracker is a long-time token that people used to give people to bring to their home to bring good luck for the coming year. Every room has its colors. That's one thing that kind of suggests what we might do with it. And each year we sit down, we look at some of the things that we have in stock, and we think about how we can reuse, buy some new things, change things around. Every year we reinvent the way it looks.
A bulldog's face might not be everyone's idea of beauty and charm, but the Toronto Humane Society is making a bulldog pup the face of a charity drive. It's targeting a heartbreaking consequence of the affordability crisis: abandoned pets. The CBC's Tariq Reed has the story.
She's a pretty healthy, happy 4-month-old puppy at this point.
French bulldog Clementine is doing much better than she was when she was brought into the Toronto Humane Society in October. Clementine was left in a chip box in a Toronto park at just 8 weeks old. A crowd of onlookers found her bleeding, until eventually someone jumped into action and took her to the shelter.
When she came in, our team were able to quickly realize that she had an emergency situation called a rectal prolapse. And so she needed surgery. It was really the only solution. And so thankfully, we were able to get the medical team responding really quickly.
She says if Clementine hadn't received timely treatment, she would have suffered life-threatening complications. Since her recovery, Clementine's been adopted into a new home. The Humane Society suspects Clementine was abandoned because her previous owners could no longer afford to care for her, something they say is becoming more common.
The rising costs of living are making it impossible for people to choose between their finances and emergency or care for their pets, and we want to help.
That help comes in the form of a new Keep Pets in the Picture campaign being launched by the Humane Society. It aims to raise money to assist those who are financially struggling to care for their pets, while encouraging owners to seek help if they need it.
We're talking about animal pet parents, we're talking about families, we want them to stay together.
Other animal shelters say they've also noticed an increase in abandoned pets and intake numbers.
I have over 1,500 requests just for 2024. Last year it was, I think 800 or 900. So we're seeing, an upward climb.
She says it's not only the cost of living that's contributing to the issue.
We don't have enough adopters. We don't have enough fosters. There are not enough rescues and shelters that can intake these pets.
The Humane Society is encouraging people to consider fostering a pet to ensure animals like Clementine always have a home. Tariq Reed, CBC News, Toronto.
Let's take a live look outside there at the Gordie Howe Bridge. Super chilly today. Temperatures dropping down to -10 degrees tonight with a chance of flurries. Hope you're able to keep warm through the cold, but a warm up is coming soon. And I also want to quickly remind you that our Make the Season Kind campaign continues all month long, and you can drop off canned goods right here at CBC Windsor till the end of December. Stay with us. Welcome back. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump seems to have a new fixation, and that's repeatedly mocking this country and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. CBC's Katie Simpson spoke with those close to Trump about his plans for Canada.
Since the Mar-a-Lago dinner, Donald Trump has made repeated cracks about Canada, joking it could be the 51st state if he tanks the Canadian economy with tariffs, even calling the Prime Minister Governor Justin Trudeau of the great state of Canada.
No one seriously thinks Trump wants to annex Canada, but what's up with this? Why does he keep saying it? We asked someone who's very familiar with Trump's thinking.
He can be mean at times, and I think he's poking at Justin Trudeau and trying to humiliate him. And I think Trump gets a laugh from it. I think it's that simple.
Ambassador John Bolton says Canada needs to play into Trump's ego in order to avoid his tariff threat.
Make the case not why the threat will hurt Canada, but why not invoking the tariffs will help Trump. Forget about U.S.-Canadian relations. That's not the issue for Trump. What makes Donald Trump look good?
Trump's comments are getting some laughs on Capitol Hill.
I wouldn't want a 51st state if they're just going to vote for Democrats.
Why do you think Donald Trump keeps saying that? He said it 4 times now.
I don't know.
Jokes aside, the tariff threat is seen as very real.
Oh, I think he's serious about it, for sure.
Republican Senator Kevin Cramer urged Ottawa to meet Trump's demands to curb the flow of migrants and illegal drugs into the U.S.
We just need to get compliance, and then we'll be fine.
So did Texas Republican Senator James Lankford.
And if there's not solutions, yes, tariffs are in his back pocket.
And Trump's incoming energy czar, North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum.
Got to make sure that we're stopping the flow of fentanyl from the Canadian border as well.
Is that a big concern for you?
10% of the illegals are coming from Canada.
Canada is preparing to spend $1 billion to improve border security and plan to telegraph the changes to Trump in the hopes it will satisfy the incoming president. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
Katie mentioned Ottawa is preparing to release details about its $1 billion border. Premiers across the country got an early heads up Wednesday during a call with the Prime Minister. Some want a tougher approach with the U.S. But as Olivia Stefanovich reports, not all premiers agree on that.
Canada is full of natural resources Americans may no longer be able to rely on. If Donald Trump moves forward with his threat to impose a 25% tax on all Canadian goods.
We power 1.5 million homes, and if they put on tariffs, it's going to be unaffordable for Americans to buy electricity.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford doubling down on a counter threat he made in last night's call between the premiers and the Prime Minister.
We're going to use every tool in our toolbox to defend Ontarians and Canadians across the border.
Well, that's okay if he does that, that's fine.
Critical minerals, metals, and forestry products may also become part of the retaliation strategy.
The U.S. is trying to build homes for Americans, but they need our 2x4s to do so.
But premiers are divided about how hard to punch back.
Under no circumstances will Alberta agree to cut off oil and gas exports.
Alberta Premier Danielle Smith says she prefers a diplomatic approach, and she's not alone.
We hope it is just bluster. We're preparing as if it is not. There will be no winners in a trade war.
I had the chance to meet with Mr. Trump last weekend in Paris, and he told me very clearly that we can avoid those tariffs if we do what needs to be done with the borders.
The U.S. president-elect wants Canada to stop the flow of fentanyl and illegal migrants crossing the border. The federal government shared details about its plan to address Trump's concerns, said by sources to cost more than $1 billion, during their call yesterday with premiers.
We were encouraged by their desire to contribute provincial personnel, provincial assets to this work.
Alberta released its own plan today to strengthen its border with Montana. Other provinces are expected to follow. As for the federal government's border strategy, well, the public safety minister says it will be released to the Trump administration in the coming days and the Canadian public. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
Colette Kennedy is back with us now. And Colette, we know that it's cold, but we also know that it's getting a little bit warmer. Warmth is waiting around the corner.
Yeah, we just got to hang in there. It is coming. This kind of weather does take some getting used to, or maybe you never get used to it. I'm not sure. Yeah, exactly. We got a couple of days, though, that we're dealing with it, and then we begin that gentle climb back to some milder air, in fact, above seasonal. So, yes, here we are with a current reading of -9 after that nearly -11 this morning, -9 Chatham-Kent, Sarnia at -8. But then we have to take the winds, factor those in. Now, they're not as strong as what they were, so that's at least something we can appreciate. But the wind chill still making it feel like -18, so that's going to slide a little bit further. Overnight tonight, it's going to feel essentially like about -20. So what happens is the temperature is going to get colder, but the winds are going to get a little lighter, and that's why it's only dropping another 2 there for the wind chill. The sustained winds and where they're at right now, in many cases, just over 20 kilometers an hour, and still some of these gusts over 30. But I mean, we're talking earlier in the day, seeing some gusts in southern Ontario over 70 kilometers an hour. So this is nothing compared to that. Same winds that are driving the lake effect snows, very significant for Lake Huron and Georgian Bay, but even some of those bringing flurries or a little bit of just a little dusting early this morning into southwestern Ontario, and then we got into the sunshine. It's so specific and localized, right, when you get into these squalls. And that's why these areas pretty widespread right now, and then we'll see that being reduced into tomorrow. There'll still be some around those areas if you are going to be traveling. You know, tomorrow's Friday, getting into the weekend. Really nasty conditions with near zero visibility. Have been some highway closures there too. And as I roll this forward, taking us into Friday, still a few areas where it's going to be hanging on. Some of those snow totals are going to be 40, 60, even a few highly localized spots with 80 centimeters. But look at this. What do we have elsewhere? Sunshine. And that's what we will have. So we'll get maybe a few flurries this evening, but into clearing overnight tonight. And then we'll have the sun through the day tomorrow, and we'll hold it into Saturday as well. Just wanting to show you some of those areas from this past week or just over a week ago that saw over 1 meter of snow. And they're looking in some cases like another, plus 40 to up to 80, like I was saying. Our overnight temperatures, as cold as last night, if anything, a little bit colder. Okay, that's why it's going to feel nearly -20. There we go tomorrow afternoon at -4. Now that's going to feel like -7. It's still a little bit knocked off, but not much. And then check out that warming coming our way.
Sounds good. Looking forward to that. Thanks, Colette. And
You're
thanks
welcome.
to you all for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.